Hello and welcome back to the I Know About Sports podcast. I'm your host, Noah Arnold, and today I'm going to be giving my end-of-year pro wrestling, best, worst, and my awards as well. As I'm going to kind of do this, I'm going to start with, some of the things, the worst of this year, on my opinion. Some of the stuff I think is going to be the things I remember the most about, the best, and then I'll get into my awards like, storyline of the year or show of the year, feud of the year, male and female wrestlers, tag team of the year, and of course matches of the year. Just giving my awards. And with that all being said, you should all know how these end of the year lists work, and I'm gonna start with my worst of the year. Just get the negatives out the way. First of all, it has been, honestly, 2024 has been one of the best years, maybe the best year of professional wrestling there have been. It's finally fully cracked open the mainstream. It's the thing again. It's back to where it was. And, it's felt like the start of a new golden era. Now, let's just hope, with corporate greed, it's becoming more corporate than ever. Let's just hope it still has, the fans in mind going forward. I'm a little nervous with TKO and whatnot. And, AEW's kind of growing and become more of like WWE is. And I hope AEW sticks to more of its roots. And also, but 2024 is going to be what I remember it as will be the year I got into professional wrestling with XWW. And I think we're having our end of year show soon. And so that I'll save some of that for then. But maybe I'll even get into it during this podcast. But with that being said, I will get my worst of the year. This is in no particular order, and this is just the worst stuff about professional wrestling this year. Because I didn't have worst of wrestlers, worst of this. I just threw it all in one list. And it was actually kind of hard narrowing it down, not narrowing it down, but getting to 10. Some years in the past, I could have a 20 list. But this year, I could have had 20 of the best. And I decided to have only barely 10 of the worst. That being said, no particular order. The first thing is the most recent thing on this list. It's the return of Tessa Blanchard to the professional wrestling mainstream. With her return at TNA's Final Destination just a few weeks ago, Blanchard has now fully back into the wrestling limelight for the first time since 2020, when she was the TNA, at the time, the Impact World Champion, when she had to relinquish it due to travel restrictions. As you know, Tessa Blanchard had a lot of controversy, a lot of skeletons in her closet when it came to bigotry, racism, bullying. The list goes on with other female wrestlers that Blanchard just simply was too toxic to ever keep in the mainstream wrestling zeitgeist. So she stuck the last couple years in smaller indies and in mainly CMLL down in Mexico. But now Blanchard has now made her way back up to TNA, where she was the world champion almost 5 years ago. And I just question, what are the positives with bringing Blanchard back? And what are the positives? A whole lot of negatives of bringing back someone like Blanchard. And now you question, what are the positives? Number 2, got to stick with TNA. It's another recent one. And it's Chris Bay's injury. In late October, TNA had a taping in Detroit. Chris Bay sustained a neck injury during a match that had to be stretchered out. He had a successful surgery and looks to the road to rehabilitation. Chris Bay was one of the rising stars, someone that TNA looked to maybe build around, maybe potentially a future world champion, either in TNA or in somewhere else. He was a potential star, but now he'll have at least a couple prime years of his career having to come back from neck injuries, and seemingly some people have said it's worse than Biggie's injury. I won't say his career is over or not because I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But I just hope Chris Bay can, get on that road to recovery. We've seen wrestlers in the last couple of years fight through neck injuries and get back in the ring, like Adam Copeland, Tommaso Ciampa, Saraya. Let's hope Chris Bay can do that. Number 3, let's stop talking about TNA. Let's talk about AEW. And I know I wasn't going to say worst wrestler of the year, but God fucking damn it, Chris Jericho. Jesus Christ. Seemingly every week, Jericho has been forced on the TV, and it's been terrible, to say the least. He doesn't have the same mojo he has. He's not good in the ring. He just doesn't come up with interesting stuff with his character. His promos are lacking. And I said, his gimmick, he's trying to lean into the fans hating him with the learning tree, and it's just not working. You can't, it's hard, it's really difficult to lean into something, be an ironic heel in 2024. I don't think it can work in AEW. When I saw him at Revolution, it was rough. And he had a rough start to the year because on the last couple days of 2023 was when the Kylie Ray stuff came out. So Jericho was very much hated then. And seemingly that negative will has not only just transitioned on the screen, but now it's infected kind of everything he does. And now with him being a Ring of Honor champion and having a rough showing as Ring of Honor champion, only showing up one time to even defend the belt, Chris Jericho has just sucked. He has been by far the worst wrestler of 2024. And honestly, I could have said it about 2023 as well. It's been a rough couple years for Y2J. Number 4 on the list, I think this is the only match I have on this list. It's Jimmy versus Jey Uso. WrestleMania was one of the best. It was a top 5, maybe top 3 Mania of all time. Almost everything clicked. The matches were great. The segments were great. The vibes were there, even though it was freezing in Philadelphia. But the one thing that drug this show down was this matchup. Brother versus brother, twin versus twin. So much hype behind it. And honestly, if you saw me and you talked to me before this match happened, I knew this was going to be a stinker. You have two wrestlers that have the exact same style, the exact same moveset, and you want them to try and go in the ring when they pretty much are the exact same wrestler. It was a recipe for disaster. The crowd really wanted to be in this matchup. They had a great start with Jey Uso diving out on the Jimmy. Quick hot start, but they could not keep it up. They tried to do the Bloodline style match where they had a lot of dialogues, monologues, slow moving action. It just did not work with these two guys. It got so bad to the point where Jimmy had to tell his own daughter at ringside to stay off her phone because she was so bored at this matchup. And it is the one blemish on what otherwise was an all-time WrestleMania. Number 5, I had this titled Brock Lesnar's Fall from Grace, but I could probably just say all of WWE's lawsuit and legal issues. As you know, WWE with Vince McMahon is dealing with, workplace sexual assault, trafficking, and whatever else. It's been a lot. And the week of the Royal Rumble, Vince McMahon got hit with another lawsuit by Janelle Grant, which alleged that Vince McMahon was supplying her to, pimping her out essentially to other employees and top officials at WWE, including a star that WWE, a former UFC champion. WWE was in active negotiation to sign a new contract, which quickly we discovered was Brock Lesnar, who was getting ready to make his return at the Royal Rumble and have a feud with Gunther at WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar, on his run, most recent run from 2021 to 2021 SummerSlam to 2023 SummerSlam. That 2-year run was, in my opinion, one of the best, maybe the best run of his career. He had the most goodwill with the fans. He was putting on fantastic matches. He was cutting great promos. And that entire run only happened because he allegedly had a woman sex trafficked to him by the boss. And it's just such a punch in the gut to so many fans, including me, who, liked Brock Lesnar, loved this run, and now forever this run is, and his entire maybe career and legacy is going to be tainted with this lawsuit and this allegation. And I said, it's an allegation as of now. Moving on, number 6. It's the second match I have on this list. I was wrong. There's 2 matches. AEW's All In was, in my opinion, maybe the second best AEW, one of the best AEW shows of all time. Maybe the second best of the year. I just loved this whole show. I feel like everything clicked from top to bottom, except for the Britt Baker Mercedes Moné match. And most people knew going into this matchup, it was probably not going to be good. Britt Baker has had a rough slate recently with matches. She had just come off a long absence off TV, almost a year absence. The feud going in this was not good. Britt Baker has lost a step on the mic. She seemingly had a lack of care in the ring. And you could tell in this matchup, it's seemingly Britt Baker. I don't know if she's lost a step in the ring, she didn't care about this matchup, or simply the lights were too bright for her being in front of this many people and wrestling the greatest women's wrestler on the planet. But this match felt so long. I think it was only like maybe not even 10 minutes. Well, just over maybe 10 minutes. And it felt 25. It was a drag to get through. Very sloppy. And, well, I know it's not on Mercedes because she's put on fantastic matches throughout the whole year. And she's, in my opinion, the best women's wrestler of all time. This was probably Britt Baker's last opportunity to have goodwill with the fans, and she blew it on the biggest stage she could possibly have it on. Number 7 on this list, going to sit kind of in the AEW zeitgeist. Ring of Honor has just had another drop. It's been rough sledding for Ring of Honor the last couple of years since the pandemic, between going out of business, then Tony Khan purchasing them and bringing them back into business, to struggling to find a TV deal, and now just being stuck on Honor Club and essentially being relegated to an AEW Dark. They have the best women's champion in the world in Athena, and she's wrestling nothing, doing essentially nothing, and being one of the best wrestlers on the planet without anyone ever seeing her. Mark Briscoe had an emotional run as Ring of Honor champion. Finally won the belt for his brother, and barely anybody noticed or cared because it was stuck on Honor Club. Nobody paid attention to it. And what really highlighted this for me was I went to the first Collision of 2024, which was in Bojangles Coliseum, where I got to see Sting for the first time, Adam Copeland for the first time. That was the first AEW show I've also ever been to. But I stayed before and after the show to watch the Ring of Honor tapings, and it really hit me there that this is just a glorified AEW Dark in Elevation. This is just a glorified get people on the show and wrestle. This is just to have matches. This is WWE Main Event. This is NXT Level Up. This is not the best grappling promotion on the planet that this used to be for 20 years. So I don't know what they need to do, if they need to find a TV deal or just some kind of streaming deal. AEW's with Max now. We could probably going to see Ring of Honor head to Max. But we also need to see is probably Tony Khan taking his hands off of Ring of Honor and giving it to somebody else who can just truly focus on the product and make Ring of Honor the grappling promotion that it should be. Number 8. Got to keep ragging on AEW. It was a rough year for AEW. But the Trios Championships, when these belts were first introduced in 2022, I had skepticism. But the Elite and Death Triangle had a pretty good run with these belts. The House of Black, in the summer of 23, had a pretty decent run with the belts. But then between the Acclaim's run as the champs, where they just sucked the life out of the whole division, Bullet Club Gold had it for a while, but they had the unified belts. Nobody cared about those. And the Patriarchy had it, which seemingly had a breath of fresh air to the belts, because anything Christian Cage touches turns to gold. And they were doing pretty decently, but then they, out of nowhere, gave the belts to the Blackpool Combat Club and Pac at All In, which at the time seemed like such a random pairing. But in hindsight, they set it up. The issue is that, yes, this is a good trio as a champion. However, there is no division. There is no other trios contenders are fighting for. This is a dead division that they only created so that the elite could have themselves win championships. These belts were created so that when Kenny Omega originally came back from his first absence, he could just stick it out in 6-man tags with the Young Bucks rather than putting on those classic Omega matches. Now that that's over, it is clearly showing a lack of division with the trios titles, and I would not be surprised if these belts get dropped sooner rather than later. Number 9 on this list, airing the CM Punk and Jack Perry backstage altercation. Heading into WrestleMania, CM Punk was doing the media tours. Everybody was in the WrestleMania media tour. CM Punk stopped on the Ariel Helwani show and, just let it sing out. He talked about everything besides the brawl-in or the brawl-out in 2022. He talked about everything in AEW that he was legally allowed to talk about. And one of this was the Jack Perry fight. CM Punk described it as he confronted him after he said something during the match, Crimea River. CM Punk confronted him, pie-faced him. They got into a scuffle. CM Punk put him in a headlock, looked over at Tony Khan and said, "I quit," before storming off. Tony Khan was apparently so upset at this, he actually aired this fight on his TV show to pop a rating off of this and to seemingly, in his mind, make CM Punk look bad. However, the fight went exactly how CM Punk described it and didn't even look that bad. Like something that should be a fireable offense. This was and you could tell in the ratings before and after this moment, this was a huge hit to AEW's reputation, the ratings, and seemingly they're not going to be able to pick up some of those fans they lost ever again. This is hopefully it's not the finger poke of doom for AEW, but this was a complete unmitigated disaster, the airing of this footage, which made themselves look bad and seemingly made CM Punk look like he was telling the truth the whole time. Honorable mentions, by the way, with AEW again, is Adam Cole and MJF storyline. I don't even need to describe it because I don't even know what to describe. Whatever the storyline is, they're friends, betrayal, they're not friends, they swap roles. For whatever reason, there's a tag team here. There's not a tag team over there. Adam Cole's injured. MJF's filming a movie. Who even knows? And then my other honorable mention was Solo Sikoa as a tribal chief. Had a really interesting start. Then when they started picking into it, heading towards SummerSlam and into the fall, Solo hit a wall and seemingly this was not working at all. Now, these last couple weeks, maybe the last month or so, now that Solo Sikoa has been allowed to show more of his personality, his more humorous side, this is seemingly kind of working again. This, somewhat fake tribal chief. The one issue with Solo Sikoa is the bell has to ring, and Roman Reigns could go. Solo really cannot. He can only do it in short bursts. And this seemingly push to put Solo Sikoa in a main event role has not worked. Number 10, closing it out in my top 10 in no order. It ended up working out and being one of the best, if not the best Mania build of all time. However, maybe the worst moment of the year, one of the worst moments in WWE history, in my opinion, on-screen moments in WWE history, has to be, but not at WrestleMania. If you don't know, Cody Rhodes won the Rumble, and with the Vince stuff happening the week before, at the Rumble, CM Punk got injured, which put another Mania main event in jeopardy. Also, before that, Seth Rollins got injured, who was the World Heavyweight Champion. So much disarray hanging in WrestleMania. The Rock, who was just appointed on the board of TKO, decided to put himself in the main event of WrestleMania, sidestepping Cody, and making Cody do it on television, sidestepping himself for the Rock can challenge Roman Reigns. And this led to one of the biggest fan backlash in professional wrestling history, where the crowd just completely turned on The Rock, who, I don't know, this was not planned. But beautiful by The Rock to realize that this was not working in less than a week, and decided to sidestep himself and turn heel and make himself The Rock again. But at the time, and if you just think about it logically, one of the worst professional wrestling segments in history, Cody Rhodes doing all that to sidestep himself so that The Rock can challenge for the belt, made no sense. I don't know what Dwayne was thinking, but that's going to round out my worst end of year. Moving on to the award show, I realized I wrote down a best of stuff. I kind of did it, I said, with my worst of, kind of like a Brian Zane video. You know, he's my favorite wrestling YouTuber of all time. I have a best of like that. And then when I looked at this, I realized this entire top 10 that I had, seemingly is going to pop up in my end of year list. So I'm just going to skip past that and just get to my end of year list, my end of year awards. And this will be ranked. Last one was not ranked. All these are going to be ranked from 5 to 1. And we're going to start off with the show of the year. Coming in at 5th place, AEW Dynasty. This could have been higher too, but this had kind of a weird mismatch. We had a great opening match with Roddy and Ospreay, which had its moments. We had one of the best matches of the year, a dream match in Danielson-Ospreay, a sleeper hit in Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly. Ospreay Danielson. I'm thinking of whatever. Ospreay Danielson, Roderick Strong versus Kyle O'Reilly. And in the main event of Swerve finally getting his crowning moment and winning the AEW World Championship from Samoa Joe. The rest of the show kind of had a weird middle portion. It was a very oddly paced show that also saw the return of Jack Perry, which was But, this show had it's a weird pace. However, those 3 matches deliver so well for me, and I have to include the show in the top 5 for that reason. There is so much good wrestling on this show. Moving on, number 4, speaking of great wrestling, NXT Heatwave. The night before saw a really crappy Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which was not great. Not good at all. However, the day after in Toronto saw NXT Heatwave 2024, which had a fantastic show throughout the card. Oba Wesley, incredible match to start. Kalani Jordan Soruka, one of the best women's matches of the year. Incredible show. Incredible match, I should say. Fraxium versus Chase U. This should not have worked, but it freaking delivered. Duke Hudson and Andre Chase got put into there, and they said, hey, go out there and face the best tag team of the year and try to put on a banger, and they freaking did it. Roxanne and Lola Vice. Roxanne got a pretty good match, all things I say. Actually, a very good match out of Lola Vice. that you would not have thought of coming in the year, but that just showed how good Roxanne is. You know, we're going to see how Roxanne will be on my in the year list for the rest of the year. And of course, the 4-way delivered more than it should have, the main event, with Paige shockingly winning the belt. This was an all-around fantastic show, NXT Heatwave. Coming at number 3 is AEW All In. AEW has finally found their version of WrestleMania, and last year's show was, the vibes were great. Show was not. But this year, show was there, the vibes were there, it finally clicked. Top to bottom, great show with the closer of Danielson Swerve, with Danielson finally getting his moment. And as I said, it had what last year's didn't have, which was some very good wrestling with, of course, Mariah as well. Mariah and Tony. Number 2, maybe it's a personal bias talking. I have WrestleMania. Yes, both nights of Mania. I count both nights. Arguably one of the best Manias of all time. Capped off with 2 nights of Bloodline shenanigans. Great show that saw Gunther's historic title reign come to an end. Bayley finally getting a WrestleMania moment. What else we saw? Speed getting hit with an RKO. And Cody Rhodes finishing the story. This probably should be most people's number 1. However, AEW Revolution is my number 1. I was there in the building. Drove all the way up Greensboro Coliseum. It was spring break that week, so it was perfect timing. Went to Greensboro for the first time. Got to see an AEW pay-per-view for the first time. And top to bottom, outside of 1, maybe 2 matches, every match was just hit after hit after hit. From the pre-show, the crowd was into it. Before the show started, the place was electric to start. In the damn pre-show, one of the biggest pops tonight was for Jeff Jarrett in Satnam Singh, where everybody was chanting about the Giant. Top to bottom, great showing by Christian and Garcia. Sleeper match, doesn't get talked about enough, is FTR versus Moxley and Claudio. Kingston and Danielson, perfect. And then, of course, the triple threat match at the end was great. Ospreay Takeshita. Ospreay's first match as an AEW wrestler was 5 stars. Honestly, the first true 5-star match I've ever watched. And then, of course, the main event, Sting and Darby. Sting's retirement match versus the Young Bucks. This was what I was here for. I was here for this match specifically, and it delivered. It over-delivered. One of the most fun, enjoyable, and emotional roller coaster match I've ever seen. And the perfect way for Sting to close out his career, and the perfect I don't know if I'll ever be at a wrestling show as perfect as this. Coming up now, moving on the list with the female wrestler of the year. Number 5, Mercedes Moné. Kind of came in somewhat halfway through the year. Had an up and down run. Her promos have not been great. Her feud with Britt Baker was really bad. But the matches have been so good outside of that. And seemingly recently, Mercedes has finally hit her stride. Now she's just dropped Camille. Got that out of there. And it's finally seems like 2025 will finally be the first comeback, if you will, for Mercedes Moné, where she's finally in stride, in a rhythm, and can prove why she's the best women's wrestler of all time. Number 4, Chris Statlander, a breakout star of last year, still continuing it this year, week after week, delivering banger after banger after banger. Her great storyline with Willow Nightingale. And while the women's division AEW still doesn't get a lot of time, it's proven that it is still a valuable asset that deserves more time. And Chris Statlander has proven that, along with number 3 on this list, Willow Nightingale, has just been the glue for the AEW women's roster in this past year. Everything has clicked for her. Banger match. Street fight against Chris here. Incredible wrestling match against Mercedes there. Even had a great mixed tag match at All In pre-show. Willow can just be put into something and can thrive immediately. Number 2 on this list, Toni Storm. Spent most of the year as AEW Women's Champion and her timeless character. The first bunch of the year was up and down to say the least, in-ring wise, but the character work was always there with her, Mariah, and Luther. Then at the end, I think after the Thunder Rosa match, finally something clicked in her. She had a great Mina Shirakawa storyline at Forbidden Door, and then had a incredible match, an incredible storyline with Mariah May at All In, which saw her lose her mind. And now, the last couple weeks, she's come back with this debut character where has amnesia and thinks she's just debuted in AEW. A couple years ago, the one issue with Toni Storm was her character work and mic work. Now, heading into 2025, the best thing about Toni Storm is her character work and her mic work. She's not even 30 yet, and she's proven that she's one of the best wrestlers on the planet, and she's now proven she's one of the best character workers on the planet. And Vince McMahon had her getting stuffed in the face with cream pies. Hate that old man. Number 1 on this list, if you know me, it's obvious. Roxanne Perez has just carried the NXT Women's Division on her back. Banger match. This heel turn has been spectacular, and I would have not thought this would have worked with Roxanne, but it has worked spectacular. Even despite the newcomers to the NXT division, Roxanne Perez has still managed to be the top dog in the division, and she looks to continue that heading into 2025 and seemingly will be caught up to the main roster sooner rather than later. Moving on to my male wrestler of the year, number 5, Drew McIntyre. The best year of his career, and he only spent 5 minutes as champion. This all has to do with his character work, which he's hit fully in stride with this heel character. Incredible storyline with CM Punk. Incredible matches throughout the whole year. Drew McIntyre has been a revelation this year, and it seemingly was looking like it would have been rough in the Triple H era, Drew McIntyre, but this year has proven that no, McIntyre has finally hit his stride and hit what he needs to be, and it's been just sensational. Number 4 on this list, Swerve Strickland. He's finally hit his rhythm at this heel character, or was the heel character. Became a tremendous wrestler in the ring as well. Has put on so many great matches. And then, when AEW really needed it, well, first off, Samoa Joe had a great title reign to start the year, and he handed it off to Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland was the exact champion AEW needed. I think given the context what AEW was and what they needed, Swerve might be one of the best, has an argument for best champion ever, because they needed a workhorse as champion, they needed a guy who was serious, who was taken seriously and put on great matches. Swerve was that. It was a steady hand, and he has now proven he can be a top guy in professional wrestling. A top guy as a draw, top guy in every storyline he's in. Swerve Strickland has proven that, yeah, obviously top dollar wasn't the breakout star of Hit Row, Vince McMahon. Number 3, Will Ospreay. He's finally made his full-time American debut and finally transitioned to being a full-time American wrestler. And it's been sensational. He's been a revelation on AEW's TV. He's put on fantastic matches, main evented multiple shows, and was just, especially when he came in, was just a spark plug AEW desperately needed. And Ospreay has delivered in that. And I imagine in 2025 he will win the AEW World title. Number 2, this is a flip-flop between 1 and 2, but I have Cody Rhodes number 2. Probably could be number 1, probably should be number 1, but he won back-to-back Rumbles. Incredible storyline with the Bloodline. Managed to actually have a very good title reign after that point. Great AJ Styles feud. Actually managed to have a pretty good filler feud in Logan Paul. Back to back to the Bloodline, not as good with the Bloodline, but now he has finally gotten back to where he needs to be, which is a feud with Kevin Owens, which has been one of the best feuds in all of wrestling. Could be heading into 2025, one of the best feuds of the year. And Cody Rhodes has just been the face of the company. He's been the best babyface champion in so long in professional wrestling. He is exactly what WWE needs at this point, and exactly what professional wrestling needs at this point as well. But my number one sentimental pick, Bryan Danielson. And granted, he only wrestled until like October maybe, but he put on so many banger matches. Almost every week on Collision at the start of the year, he was just wrestling a random international star every week and putting on a fantastic match with them. He made Eddie Kingston. He put over Eddie Kingston huge at Revolution. He had that banger match with Ospreay. The Anarchy in the Arena match. And then he finally had his moment where people are finally accepted. Yes, Bryan Danielson has an argument to be the best wrestler of all time at All In. And that's why Bryan Danielson is my pick for number one. Even in his final moments, still putting over everyone huge. Whether it's Swerve in a loss, whether it's Moxley, whether it's Ospreay, Kingston. Danielson just loves giving back to professional wrestling, and I hope Danielson knows that we love him back just as much, if not more. I won't get into this too much because Tag Team of the Year, this was a really bad year for tag team wrestling. So I won't spend too long. Number 5, Motor City Machine Guns have been a huge hit in WWE that they desperately needed. Number 4, DIY. Hopefully they can keep up. I don't know what this heel run's going to be like, but I hope they can just keep putting on good matches and be a glue piece of the tag division. Number 3, Jade and Bianca. They make the women's tag titles feel important. They've put on pretty good matches. That's all you really need. Number 2, despite having a pretty bad year, I have the Young Bucks at number 2. Just because they put over Private Party huge. They had the incredible match with Sting. And they had a really bad title reign, but they did a lot with the belts, and they'd had enough moments to where, like, I can't say that any of the other tag teams should be higher, even though it was not a good year. It's just been a really bad year for tag team wrestling. But number 1 on this list is pretty obvious. It's Fraxium, Nathan Frazier, Axiom. And similarly, the NXT tag division, much like the AEW tag division, has had a really bad year. Really bad time. However, unlike what the Young Bucks did, Fraxium decides to wrestle damn near every week, sometimes twice, and just puts on banger matches with anybody on the card, seemingly. Whether they're tag teams, whether they're singles wrestlers, whether they're jobbers, it doesn't matter. Fraxium's going to put on a great match with them. And they put on some of the best tag matches of the year, some of the best tag matches I've ever seen. Just hope that they can keep this up, and I hope they stay champions forever, because right now there is no tag team in that division that should be anywhere near those tag belts at the moment. Now, my breakout stars of the year, number 5 is Mariah May. Number 4 is Joe Hendry. Number 3 is Stephanie Vaquer. Number 2 is Braun Breaker. And my number 1 is Jacob Fatu. Fatu finally got a mainstream appearance in professional wrestling. He's finally hit the mainstream. And boy, he's been a revelation. With the I Love You solo, he's put on great matches. He has been the presence, the looming presence, the evil presence of the bloodline. And when he finally breaks loose, holy crap, he's going to be the world champion. He has gotten himself into great shape as well. Best shape of his career. He's doing the best character work of his career. And Jacob Fatu is my breakout star of the year. And boy, 2025 could be even bigger for him. My moments of the year, I have number 5, Sting's retirement. Number 4, Swerve's house no more. Hangman Page burns Swerve Strickland's house down. Number 3, Mariah May's heel turn on Toni Storm. Number 2, Bryan Danielson wins the AEW World title. And number 1, finish the story. A storyline that was over almost 4 years in the making. And you really think about it, it's something like this has been building for almost 40, maybe even 50 years. And it finally happened this year. Cody Rhodes wins the belt his dad could not win. And he does it on the biggest stage of them all. Ends the ultimate title reign. And he beats a member of the bloodline, Roman Reigns, for the belt. And ushers in a new era in WWE history. I love Bryan Danielson. I don't think any moment can be like this. It's Cody Rhodes finally finishing the story. It's just so it's a moment in wrestling history that nothing's ever the same before or after it. It's quite literally the dawning of a new era. The culmination of so many storylines. And it looks like it's seemingly going to continue beyond this point with Rock Cody likely at WrestleMania 41. But man. This was a moment where all the legends came back and seemingly, like Cena and Undertaker passing the torch to Cody, making him the guy. And my honorable mentions, by the way, I did have 2 honorable mentions for this. I had the New Day's heel turn. One of my favorite factions of all time, one of the best factions of all time, had maybe one of the best heel turns ever, and 0 punches were thrown. They did it with words. This was so effective, so emotional, so well played. Kofi and Xavier's seemingly they were going to break up, to them turning on Big E. Just tremendous work. And this is right up there. I should have had this on the list, but this was so last minute and so late in the year. But depending on how good this run is with the New Day, this might be looked back on as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, heel turn of all time. And also, my also want to mention was The Rock gives Cody hard times. This was the segment they did in Chicago, before WrestleMania, where The Rock beat up Cody in the parking lot. I think it was, he hit him with the belt, made him bleed. This is genuinely one of the best, WrestleMania build moments, WrestleMania build segments of all time. I may argue it's the best. This sold me on that tag match, where I was previously a little iffy on that tag match between, Seth and Cody and Rock and Roman. But Rock going out there to start the show in a surprise moment and ending the show with having one of the most violent beatdowns of the modern era on Cody Rhodes, and just the monologue he cut on Cody, making him bleed, whipping him with the belt, the talking to his mom to the camera. And then not only that, the rain, because it was raining outdoors when they filmed this. The rain added so much to this segment. It seemingly seemed like all hope was lost for Cody. Before he eventually finished the story, all hope was lost. The Rock is the big bad. He's the big evil of the storyline. And there's no hope for Cody. And that's what sold me on that match so much. And then, of course, he loses the match on night 1 tag match as well. They played this so well, put so many obstacles in front of Cody before he finished the story. Feuds of the year, I had Bayley EO number 5. Wish they could have gave this build to WrestleMania. Number 4, Mariah and Toni. Very quick, but very long played out storyline, and I'm interested to see where this heads with this new Toni Storm character. But Mariah May slapped her own mother during the match. So, yeah, that was crazy. Number 3, the only reason I had this lower was because it blends in the last year as well, and that's Hangman Swerve. Just blending in with last year as well. And number 2, Cody versus Roman / The Rock. As I said, it's a continuation of last year's storyline with just a new wrinkle in this. And new wrinkle is the freaking Rock is here. Not Dwayne Johnson's here. The Rock is here. And he added so much to this. That otherwise would have been a interesting build. I would have been interested to see what this would have been without The Rock, but The Rock being here added so much to the Cody and Roman feud. And my number 1, it's pretty obvious. It's Drew and Punk. I don't know what else it would have been. One of the best blow-off matches of the year in Hell in a Cell. All-time segments every week. Promo battles every week. Even when they weren't there. So they always weren't there. Every week, just tremendous stuff. Now moving on to my matches of the year. I want to give a quick honorable mention. This is so rough, but honorable mention to the Ospreay-Danielson match from AEW Dynasty. I love this match, but I would say it felt more like an Ospreay match than a Danielson match, which kind of hurt it for me. It didn't feel like a blending of style as much as it felt like Danielson trying to take it to Ospreay's level. But still a 5-star match. But then my number 5, I just put this in. It's Drew and Punk. I talked myself into it. One of the bloodiest matches in recent WWE history. The Hell in a Cell finally feels like Hell in a Cell. The culmination of what was a all-time storyline, all-time rivalry. And it also showed that CM Punk still has it. It also shows that Hell in a Cell still has it. This made me feel. That's why this is on my list. Number 4, Ospreay Takeshita. I was in the building for this. Maybe biased. Holy shit. Incredible. Just incredible. I can't even give a play-by-play of this. The show was very good, very good. And then just when Takeshita came out, you could sense the people coming. You could sense all of us rising up, realizing this match was happening and this was going to be good. And then when Ospreay's music hit, just the aura in the building changed. The feeling in the room changed. And from the get-go, this was tremendous. This was over 20 minutes of just pure wrestling magic between those two. And in terms of pure in-ring wrestling, this is the best match maybe I'll ever see in person in my life. Number 3, Sting and Darby versus the Bucks, the main event of that show, AEW Revolution. This was the reason I was at the show, was to see Sting's final match. And it lived up to it. Glass everywhere, chairs, violence, Sting's sons. Ric Flair was there for some reason. Ricky Steamboat got one of the biggest pops of the night. And Sting still had it. At the very end, Sting still had it. And what made me feel about this show is that both my parents, grew up watching Sting, and now their son is a 21-year-old and just saw Sting's final match. That just, I don't know what any other sport that's going to be like that. Maybe the Mike Tyson fight, maybe. Number 2 and number 1 and 2 flip-flop all the time for me, so whatever, is Roman Cody 2 from WrestleMania. This had all the overbooked bloodline bullshit that we are so used to, but it just worked. From the get-go, Cody was, played the role perfectly. He was so desperate to just get this win and get it quickly. But Roman Reigns was like, no, because he knew he had backup. If he drugged this in the deep waters, he had it in the bag. And we had interference here. Somebody comes out to save him there. And then all of a sudden, in that 5-minute stretch of Jay coming out, and then Cena coming out, and then, of course, The Undertaker coming out, was just maybe the best 5 minutes in professional wrestling history, in my opinion. And it all culminates with Cody Rhodes hitting the 3 crossroads like he did the last year against Roman. But this time, he had backup. He had backup to help him out. And when it was just those two in the ring, Cody Rhodes proved he was the better man and won the match, won the belt his daddy couldn't win. My number one, Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland. Danielson, maybe my all-time favorite wrestler. And heading into the show, I was thinking, there's a good chance Danielson retires here. When I saw the Green Day music video, I was thinking, oh crap, Danielson's for sure retiring. And then as the show kept going along, I was like, you know what? No, Danielson's going to win this title. He's going to win the match. And then when the match was starting off, final countdown hit, and I'm thinking, yeah, of course. Still getting pretty emotional. And then I heard Jim Ross's voice, and I was thinking, oh crap, Jim Ross is here. They just had the Green Day music video. Final countdown's blasting. His wife and kids are there. Danielson's not winning this matchup. He's retiring. And the whole match is just playing off that fact that this is Danielson's last match. He's doing all the big stuff. Swerve is just beating his ass the whole match and is, just running amok here, throwing something there. Oh, no selling the Psycho knee. Nothing's working on Danielson. He's bloodied up, beaten down, and just the spark of him coming up, he's getting kicked, and looking over at his family and saying how much he loves them before firing back off is maybe my most beloved moment of the year. Golly, I love that spot. God damn, I love Bryan Danielson. He just makes me feel, every time he's in the ring, it feels like it's real. And that's why he is my all-time favorite wrestler, just like with CM Punk. I really thought that was going to be it for Danielson, especially when I heard Jim Ross's godforsaken Jim Ross on commentary. I love you, Jim. He scared me so bad. But I saw that, and just me watching that match too, it was an emotional weekend because that was the weekend I finally we moved out of our family home. We moved into a new house not too far away. But I moved out of the only house I ever knew that weekend. And on that Sunday, I rushed home where we're still kind of moving to watch this match. And I was kind of more emotional than I probably should have been because, I felt like, golly, I lost childhood home. Now my all-time childhood wrestler is getting ready to retire. I was just an emotional wreck during this match. And then when Swerve tapped out and he won, especially for pro wrestling, I really don't get emotional. Overtly, overcome with emotion. This was probably one of the only matches I've genuinely have felt with emotion before. The only other time I ever feel like that with emotion was with passings, but that's obviously different. In the wrestling world, when passings happen, it's obviously different than this. This was just a storyline. And that's the first time a storyline has ever made me feel genuinely emotional. Was seeing, my all-time favorite wrestler finally get his moment in the sun, with his family there, final countdown playing, and him truly knowing just how much we all love him. That being said, the rest of everything I wrote down, my in the year list and whatnot. I say just first year in business, watch XWW. If I had to go off the top of my head, I don't have a lot of these. I didn't have nothing for XWW written down on that. I will say wrestler of the year for XWW, JP Lehman. He won freaking everything. He's a tremendous promo, tremendous worker in the ring. There's so much creative stuff. I would say after that, best wrestler for XWW this year. I would have to go with just the consistency because the match quality as well. have to go AJ Myers. I'll probably go AJ Myers, my boy. Number 2. Number 3, maybe Cam Jackson. 4, I'd say. Number 4. XWW. Hey, Lil Panda. And number 5, Thomas Extreme. I'll probably put Thomas Extreme actually number 3. Every match, he is such a good worker. I love the guy to death. He deserves more of a spot. He deserves all the flowers. He deserves so much. Everybody next to WWE, everybody. I haven't had a bad experience with any wrestlers besides that absolute fraud Elliott Shock. God, I hate that guy. Let me tell you what. Him being the champion just gets on my nerves, man. Every time I see him at one of the shows, it drives me up a wall. Genuinely insane. Just a dastardly person. And I just hope and pray that someone like AJ Myers can just get him. That's why he's not in my top 5. Maybe my honorable mention would be the heel in their feels, Jack Wiley. Definitely an honorable mention. Absolutely inspirational. Did put on a very good showing against Quest. Better than what I thought he would do. But Jack Wiley, I don't know if braver or stupider is the word for it, but he got in the ring with Quest. And he took a beating, but he got through it, and it's better. I would never do that. I would never ever do that. What he did, but I gotta applaud him. Hey, he had a goal. He did it. That's why. Every time I'm near Jack, I kind of back away a little. I tense up. I don't feel as comfortable because I know he can beat my ass. That's why I'm more chill around Dom. I love my man Dom Douglas. So I know he won't randomly hit me with a German or whatnot there. And then I have to say my top match XWW off the top of my head. By the way, if you're still listening, thank you. This is just my other stuff because I think we're having our end of the year show soon. So yeah, spoiler alert, but also spoiler alert. JP Lehman's going to Wrestler of the Year. I don't know. That's not a spoiler. They don't tell me nothing. I don't even know if the award show's happening, but JP Lehman's going to Wrestler of the Year. There's just not even a debate about that. Match of the Year, I would personally say, I think Shawn Legacy, Thomas Extreme from Kingdom Quest was my match of the year for XWW. If you want to get into XWW, watch that match. Incredible. And Breakout Star of the Year, it'd have to be Bash Caliban, for sure. That all being said, actually no, Newcomer of the Year in XWW is me. That all being said, thank you so much for listening for an hour and hearing me for the last 10 minutes rant about XWW. It was a tremendous year for professional wrestling, tremendous year for me. First year really becoming a broadcaster thanks to USC, Mr. Muller's class, and then, of course, with XWW in the summer now, heading into the winter now. I didn't think it would go this long, but golly, it's been great. And I just want to keep giving love to it all. Just don't want to let this high run out. And hope I can continue all this in 2024. And then it's going to be the last episode of the year. Thank you all, and good night.